Aaron, I think we can all agree, though, that Rent is the greatest live performance ever to be created. I'm watching Aaron's face because I know for a fact that he disagrees with this, and every time I say this, he dies a little inside. So.
I just feel like it's the only musical that you've seen or know. Like, I don't know. I just what Rent?
Rent is great though.
Rent is great.
Is it the greatest ever?
Stop wasting your musical.
I was joking about that. I was joking about that just to get a rise out of Aaron, but it is good.
The weird background there is I was a theater nerd was in middle school and high school, and was surrounded by theater kids who would just incessantly and continually sing Rent all day, every day. We would go to the diner like after class, and they would just break loudly and obnoxiously into La Vie Boheme, like in the middle of an epic diner. And I'm just like trying to eat my burger, and I'm like, I can't. So that musical has been stomped to dust.
The need
for
to
me.
express, to communicate, to going against the grain, going insane, going mad.
I'm gonna mute you. I'm gonna unplug my headphones.
That was incredible. Can you do more, Joel? Can we just?
And you haven't seen Hamilton?
Would you like my candle?
Oh, like a.
What are you staring at? Nothing. Your hair in the moonlight. You look familiar.
Can we do one of those episodes where
you know what it is?
Can we do one of the episodes where people think the episode's over and there's like 15 seconds of silence, and then just the audio of Joel singing Rent with none of this context. No context at all.
Only us. There's only this. Forget, regret, or life is yours to miss.
The podcast.
No other way. That's all I remember.
Wow. We've unlocked something.
That's not true. I actually remember.
We have.
But let's move on.
I think you do. I think you do think Rent is the best musical of all time.
Better than the original, maybe.
I just definitely got way into it. That's for sure.
No, that was amazing.
It hurt me. It was ruined for me. I'm sure it's wonderful.
That's fair.
I can't get through it.
That's fine. Joel's rendition, wonderful.
I mean, if Joel was the kid singing it to me, I would be my favorite thing ever.
Come over.
Now we have audio of Joel singing it, and we can like put in a file, and I can put it on my phone.
Fun.
It can be my ringtone when you call.
What if this is how I get discovered? And then you guys are gonna have to replace me on the Stop Wasting Your Wine podcast because I'm rich and famous on Broadway now, and don't have time. You guys.
You don't know this yet, but we actually just created a new segment called Joel Sings Rent, and that's going to be in every show going forward.
So fitting. We'll open up a restaurant in Santa Fe. Sunny Santa Fe would be nice. Let's go.
Welcome to Stop Wasting Your Wine, a wine review podcast where we waste our wine so you don't have to. On this episode, we review
a white wine from California.
If this is your first time joining us, welcome in. If you're one of our amazing return listeners, welcome back. My name is Colin, and I am joined by two of the most competitive guys I know, Aaron and Joel. How you guys doing tonight?
Doing very well. I was the first one to come in with an answer.
But I am more competitive than Joel, to be clear. I am more competitive than Joel. I am the most competitive person on this pod.
I don't know. I'm pretty competitive. I don't compete often, but when I do, I want to win, like badly. And I'm not the best sport either. I hate to admit, but I hate losing.
You're probably right. But for the sake of this pod, I'm going to go ahead and say, no, that's not true. I'm the most competitive.
I just did that. Yeah, no, it's true. I am a competitive person. I don't mean to be, but I am.
I feel like if I pushed it one more time, Aaron might actually start getting mad because he is that competitive. And I was thinking about doing it just to see you get one level of more frustrated with me, but I'm not going to.
No. I don't get frustrated because I already know who won this argument.
Wow.
This is not the hill
Okay.
I'm gonna die on. You can be
All
the
right.
most competitive
Nah,
person on the
joking. I
pod.
joke. I joke.
Yeah.
I kid.
Maybe
Mostly.
Aaron is the most competitive. Well, I bring that up because we've been playing a lot of games on this podcast recently and having a great time with that. And if I'm not mistaken, we have another new game this evening. Joel, you want to tell the listeners at home what we're doing this evening?
Yes, I do. So listen, if we mentioned before that we are three gentlemen who met at college, and that's kind of where our relationship began. So we together have played a little game called Would You Rather. We're going to play a little bit of a twist on that one, but in the Stop Wasting Your Wine world, we're going to name this game Pick Your Poison.
Ooh.
Ooh, I like
Cool.
that.
So listen, if you've never played the game, pretty simple and pretty self-explanatory. We're going to be presented with two options. Could be something wine related, could be something random, not wine related. And we're going to pick your poison between the two options, possibly debate the pros and cons of each. So that's the game. Now, Colin, I don't know what we've got planned for the subject matter. So I'm going to throw it back to you.
All right. Well, gentlemen, I thought we would start at a really high level in the wine category and go pick your poison. Wines from the New World or wines from the Old World. And the New World being everywhere that's not Europe and the Old World being Europe. What do you guys think?
You know, I thought I had answers earlier. I was going to go full like America and be like, New World, baby. And you know what? I have a rant today for you all that's going to stand by the New World rant. But we've dabbled a bit with areas outside of the traditional what you think. And we're like, ooh, there's really good stuff in like Portugal and Spain and whatnot that is less expensive. Well, you know what? I'm going to go New World. I'm going to give it some of the New World places. And I'm going to say, I believe in the future. I believe the children are the future.
Wow. I am so like as soon as you said you didn't have to finish the question before I decided in my head I'm an old world guy. I'll tell you why. Number one, I think I've been pleasantly surprised by some of the stuff we tried out of California and Washington, but wow. I mean, we've explored some of these amazing regions in France and Spain and Italy. And also the best stuff that's happening in the new world is really an attempt to emulate what's been going on in the old world for forever. Some of them quite successfully, some maybe not as much. So absolutely hands down old world for Joel. Colin, how about you?
Yeah, I'm an old world guy too. There's just something about old world wines that new world wines don't have. They're a little bit more funky, a little bit more edgy, where new world wines are clean, which is great. And don't get me wrong, there's some amazing new world wines, but the old world's got a little bit of some extra in there that I just really enjoy.
And that's okay. That's okay. There has to be one dissenting voice giving like the
Mhm.
hope for,
Mhm.
a new generation of winemakers out there. It would have been boring if we were all old world. So
You're the Pepsi Cola of this
boring.
podcast. Thank you.
Pepsi is better. Fight me about it.
It is not.
Okay. So
Wait,
we already got our next one. Number 3. Let's
is
go.
Is that a genuine opinion that you have, by the way?
I was raised on Pepsi. She's
Oh,
a
wow.
staple in my house. So Pepsi is like the
Wild.
predominant flavor profile in my brain.
Okay. It's pretty hip.
Yeah. The Clellies didn't mess around. We were always on the cutting edge of the
We were a Coke family, and to the point where, like, I don't know if this was just what my family did or if this is like a Florida thing or a Southeastern thing, whatever, but we would call all sodas Cokes. Like if we were having
no,
family
that was
over,
also
my mom would be like, "Oh, I'm gonna go get some Cokes. What do you guys want?" We'd be like, "Oh, get some Coke and some Sprite." Right? Yeah.
No, it's weird. I saw a map of that once, and it's regionally all over the place. Like there's parts of Massachusetts are also Coke areas, but then there's like parts of Massachusetts that are tonic. My family in Pennsylvania would say pop.
Yeah, pop. I like pop.
Sure.
I wish I was a pop guy because it sounds fun, but I'm not
Yeah.
from a pop place, so I can't try to do it.
Yeah, this is a good one. This is exciting. All right. The one that we all ask ourselves all the time. Red wine or white wine. If you can only choose one for the rest of your
Oh
life.
God,
Colin.
that's so tough.
I know.
I don't know. I'd probably have to go with red wine, honestly. Pinot Noir is probably my favorite grape, so to go too far away from that would be super sad. And I love white wine. Don't get me wrong. Like, I love white wine, but there's just too much good and interesting and fun red wine. It's just, I feel like there's just so much more. And maybe I'm wrong on that, but I think I'm going red wine.
Yeah.
Joel?
Again, not a question for me. Red wine 100%. I will say I've been really enjoying the white wines that we've tried, and it's opened my eyes to a lot of different grapes that I otherwise probably wouldn't have gone too deep into. But if I'm choosing one, I just think the spectrum of red wine is so much greater than that of white wine. And I can find extremely light red wines and really deep and bold red wines to really kind of, match whatever I'm looking for. I feel like there's a limit on the white wines at some point. So I'm glad I don't have to choose between the two, but if I did, it's red wines for sure.
I'll jump on the
Aaron?
train of making an obligatory statement to not offend the white wine people out there. Nothing against white wine. There's a lot of good white wine. My wife would choose white wine, but I just personal taste preference. If I was choosing one style of wine for the rest of my life, it would be red wine without hesitation. Please don't cancel
Sure.
us, white wine stands.
Mm.
All right, last question, Joel. What do you have for us?
Okay, how about this? Cybertruck or any other vehicle that exists in the world?
Oh, this one is easy for me. I would go with any other
Cybertruck.
vehicle in the
Oh, okay.
entire world. No, I hate the Cybertruck. I see it around town now, and it's absolutely repulsive. I can't stand it. It's the ugliest thing on the road, and I wish they'd crawl back into whatever cyber hole they came out of. But I am not a fan.
Ooh.
Cyber hole. I don't think you could say that. Look,
That's a lot
y'all-
of meetings here.
Yeah, not to offend any Cybertruck folks listening to the show right now. And I had a really good debate with a couple of people last weekend about, kind of the merits of being the first person to break the mold and like what a looks like. But yeah, no, it's a giant walking piece of trash, and I hate
Yeah.
it. I love every video of like a Ford F-150 pulling a Cybertruck out of the mud. Like,
Yes.
It's just it warms my soul in a way that nothing else really compares to.
I was just going to
100%.
ask if you've seen those videos of them, like, or even the one I haven't seen them getting pulled out, but I saw one where it's just like a little stream of water. It can't make its way out of the bank of the river, and I'm like, come on, guys.
Look, don't get me wrong. I'm full like EV vehicles. Like I love all
Sure.
the tech stuff. I love the push, but that thing. I also think back to the video when they announced it, and he walked over to it and he was like, "And the window's shatterproof," and he hit it, and the window shattered. And I'm just like, nothing about this thing
so
is fully
true.
thought through. God.
Well, it looks like it should be from the 1980s, like what a 2020 car is going to look like, but like the vision they had in the 80s. Like it almost looks like a DeLorean.
It looks like 8-year-old Elon Musk was learning how to draw cars, and that's
and
what he
not
drew
very well at the time.
And he was like, "Oh, look at 6-year-old cars," and he was like, "I drew it." And then now that he's a billionaire, someone was like, "What do you want to do?" And he's like, "This." And they were like, "Oh, that's what you want to build us off of?" And he's like, "No, this." And they just made like a sketch. It looks like a sketch drawing of
they took
something that drives.
Something just occurred to me. Isn't Tesla a sponsor of our podcast? Isn't Tesla one of our bigger sponsors?
Not anymore.
Yeah,
they're not.
edit
Yeah.
that out. Well,
The Cybertruck is cool.
I'm the Cybertruck.
For the record, Tesla is not a sponsor of this.
Nor will they ever be. Next.
yeah,
Not
no, it was. Yeah, that was fun. A good time. Another fun game. We're gonna try to insert some games into the beginning of the shows going forward. So let us know if you like the games or if you don't like the games. We're open to other ones, or if you like what we're doing. So let us know. All right. Well, we got some wine to talk about this evening. Joel, can you let the people know a little bit more about what we are drinking?
Sure. So we mentioned we're drinking a white wine from California, sticking in California now for a couple of weeks, which is cool. A lot to explore there. So today we are trying the Stag's Leap Chardonnay. This is from 2022 from Napa Valley. This has an ABV of 14.1%, and we picked this up for somewhere between $25 and $30, depending on where we were. Yeah.
This was my pick this week, and I follow this guy, Patrick Capiello, I believe is how you pronounce his name, Patrick Wine on Instagram, at Patrick Wine. He's a winemaker, and his stump that he's been preaching from is all about local wine. And local, he means wine from America. And he wants people to drink more wine. He wants Americans to drink more wine from America to support the American wine growers and the American winemakers. So that got me thinking about some of the iconic wines that really elevated the American wine scene. So when you think of some of those brands, you have Robert Mondavi, you have Opus One, Beringer, which now makes white Zinfandel, but used to and still does make really, really good world class Cabernet Sauvignon. And you also have to add Stag's Leap to that group because it is just an iconic brand. And Aaron, I think, is actually going to talk a little bit more about Stag's Leap in a little bit here.
Yeah, baby.
But the problem with all these brands is now they're all very expensive because they do have such, they hold such cachet because they played such a big role. And they make great wines too, but they played such a big role in the American wine scene and really elevating that. So I wanted to try a wine from one of those major wineries, and the Stag's Leap was one of the more affordable ones that we could find. So I wanted to bring this one on the show. And also, we haven't done a Chardonnay since like episode 1, I think. So that would be a good idea to just try some more Chardonnay.
Love it. And I think, it's funny. I feel like I've heard Stag's Leap for forever. Like it's been, one of the vineyards that's been like in my head and in my world for a while, but I've never tried it. So, one of the bigger names probably that we've tried, and looking forward to it.
Yeah. Absolutely. Again, an absolutely iconic winery out there right in the heart of Napa. All right. Well, this evening we have an absolute treat. Aaron is going to grace us with one of his wine rants. So, Aaron, what do you have for us this evening?
It's time for a history rant with Aaron.
All right, y'all. It's been a while. If you are a new listener, it probably feels like you haven't heard one of my rants since the great dance plague of 1516. But here we are. Go
Throwback.
back to that one if you like. Throwback. But y'all, I am excited because, quite frankly, I feel like my planets have aligned right now. Before we decided to do this wine, I was actually saying I'm heading out to a wedding in Napa Valley in a week or so, and we're going to go visit a bunch of vineyards while we're out there. And one of the estates that we signed up to check out was Stag's Leap. So I'm just going to happen to be out there next week. That's really exciting. And then when Colin mentioned wanting to do this wine and we talked about possibly doing a wine rant, the concept of talking about the 1976 Judgment of Paris came up. Now, this is something I have never heard of before. And so I did some digging, and man, this is a lot of fun. So this was talked about in the movie Bottle Shock, which is definitely a movie I've heard of, but I have not seen. Came out in 2008, starring little-known actors Bill Pullman, Alan Rickman, and actually, surprisingly, Chris Pine, which when you see him in like 2008, you're like, what are you doing with Bill Pullman and Alan Rickman? But yeah.
It was a good movie. It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed the heck out of it.
I've seen some of this now.
But this whole thing is wild because it comes out of nowhere. So basically there's this guy, Steven Spurrier, who is a English wine shop owner living in France. He's pretty young at this point. He's in his 30s, and he's pretty much just trying to get his wine shop on the map and get more attention. He ends up founding the first private-owned wine institute in France. But what he does is he has been hearing about American wines, California wines specifically. And so he says, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to invite a bunch of the snobbiest, most pretentious, most famous French wine people to my area. We're going to go to a hotel and I'm going to host a blind tasting. And it's like a tongue-in-cheek celebration of the American bicentennial, like 200 years. We're going to celebrate America by blind tasting some American wines up against French wines. And so it's like a big PR thing. So they set this up. They bring over a bunch of wines from America. It's represented in the movie Bottle Shock really well. It's like such a low stakes operation. They literally carry the wines on the plane with them because they didn't want to stow them and pack them away. They bring them over to France. and they put them up against some of the best French wines that you can think of. They do two sets, a set of white wines and a set of red wines. It's a group of French wines from 200-year-old vineyards against a bunch of, they literally call them like upstart American vineyards. It's like cute. And they're all like places that are, you know, they might have like a longer history of like the land ownership, but for all intents and purposes, like most of the American vineyards have been like starting their operation in like the late 1960s, early 1970s. So they bring in these judges. They bring in these 9 French judges who are like wine magazine editors, producers, owners of estates, sales folk, work in wine institutes, and they have them blind taste. They have an American judge, and they have Steve Spurrier is allowed to be a judge as well, but their scores are not allowed to be counted. So there's 9 French judge and an American judge and an English judge, but they don't let the American English judge actually score. So it's just like these 9 French judges being like, no, this is it. And they're pretty much told, score these wines 1 to 20, whatever you want. No rubric, just based on your expertise. Give it a number between 1 and 20. So you can imagine like some of them are like very nice. Some of them are very snobby. Like there was one judge who didn't give anything more than a 15, like, you know, and it just like went at it. The American wines won both categories. Won both the white wine category and the red wine category. And as you can imagine, the French felt a sort of way about that. It went from being like this little tiny, like, you know, Steve Spurrier just trying to get attention and like doing this fun thing to like French outrage and global recognition of American wines. In the white wine section, Chateau Montelena, which was founded in 1972, got the top prize. And then a French wine got number 2, but 3 and 4 also went to American wines as well. And then in the red wine section, Stag's Leap, which is why this is so great, going up against Bordeaux. So I'm sorry, I should have said earlier, it was California Cabernet Sauvignons against French Bordeaux's. And then it was California Chardonnays versus Burgundy Chardonnays. So this is like really like the cream of the
Heavy
crop,
hitters.
like, yeah, heavy hitters stuff being brought out. And Stag's Leap won in that category as well. Anarchy ensues. Very funny stuff. I wasn't going to write down all the judges' names, but I did write down Odetta Khan because she was so mad that she demanded her ballot back. She said it didn't count, that there was fraud, that there's no way it was possible. They then allowed to factor in like the English and the American judges back in to be like, maybe that'll change the numbers. It didn't change the numbers in the top scorers. And then they started to make up all this stuff being like, well, you know what? French wine is supposed to be aged. So that's the reason we lost, because, and so you know what they did? They held another tasting 30 years later, all the same bottles, same years, same everything. They came back 30 years later, and not only did an American wine win the red category again, it was actually a wine from Ridge Vineyard, which originally had scored like 7th and now won overall. And then the following 4 wines were all Americans.
That's crazy.
Wow.
So all the French wines actually
Crazy.
scored in the bottom, except for like the last one. And 1 through 5 were all the American wines that were supposedly like not going to age as well. So it doesn't count.
Very cool.
So cool.
Just warms my heart as the one person here that picked New World if I had to choose one or the other.
Yeah,
when
good call.
Push comes to shove, and you know, when you have to have Alan Rickman play an English guy setting up a tasting all over the world, the American wines carried the day in white and red. The 1976 Judgment of Paris. Very fun.
Pretty cool.
And that's what really put Napa on the map. You know, American wine wasn't as popular or important before that. And then after that, you know, that's it. Part of the reason why Napa is as expensive and as sought after as it is today, because those wines were really elevated from that point on. So really, really cool story. I absolutely love that story.
And we've talked about this impact over and over and over again, especially in our wine purchasing. Just like there is excellent wine coming out of traditional wine regions,
Mhm.
of course. But if you limit yourself to those out of some basic snobbery of like only the good wine comes out of X areas or only the good wine can cost X amount, you are literally falling into the trap that so many people have fallen in before. And as you know, as Ashwin talked about a few weeks ago, like the system is designed to want that. Like all these French judges, their well-being, like their financial status depends on perpetuating the idea that they are the best of the best of the best. And so when they had to like face the facts with a blind tasting, you know, that just wasn't the case.
Rock their world.
Mhm.
Just like America does.
That's right.
Been doing it to the French for a long time.
Very cool. Well, thank you, Aaron. That was another awesome wine rant. Such a cool story, and I think
Pretty
you know
cool.
that stories like that really make wine more interesting because it kind of peels back the onion on some of the underbelly of what made the wine we're drinking today what it is, or the wine world what it is today. So very cool. So thanks again for that. So this evening we are trying a wine from the winner, Stag's Leap. It might be a
Pretty cool.
Chardonnay because the Cabernet at Stag's Leap right now, a little pricey, but this one not as pricey. So why don't we go ahead and get into the wine?
Tastes like wine.
I got my glass tat that says Chardonnay. It's my first glass tat that actually
Oh.
has to do with my wine. Yeah.
Oh man,
Wait, did you know there was a Chardonnay glass tap last week when we were playing it?
No. But I found it for Chardonnay today.
Cool.
So
Chardonnay today. Look at you. All right, Joel, what are you getting on the nose?
this is not the most aromatic wine that we've had so far. Would you say, Joel?
No, and I think that's why I'm having a little bit of trouble picking some things out here. And I'll tell you, like, the thing that sticks out to me the most is I don't even know if this is going to make a lot of sense, but not a lot of fruit. What sticks out to me is that it smells like it's going to be buttery, if that makes any sense. Like it smells like velvety. I don't really know how to say it other than that. But for the most part, it's just, it smells like it's going to be really smooth and velvety.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I couldn't pull out any specific fruit or anything like that, but I kind of just had this general vibe of like, you know, when you walk into a park and you just get like that open air grass kind of, not floral's the wrong word because it's not overly flowery, but it's just like kind of that nature smell, but it's very, very light. There's not a lot there. Colin?
Yeah, I'm getting some lemon, a little bit of melon as well, but you really get hit with the oak on this one. Like the vanilla is actually shocking. There's no doubt that this has seen some oak.
Shocking hit.
And
These are
then
words that I'm not associating with my experience right now. I think it might
And then,
W
man,
to
I mean,
nose.
like, really, when I get in there, and not until you said vanilla, Colin, did I even get any of those oak notes. Now that you've said it and I'm focusing on it, and if I like take a really big inhale, I'm sort of getting what you're saying, but I was not getting that.
oh, okay. And I
You're
actually
being,
I
you're
like
being hyper like thoughtful about it. Like would your average person, like your average wine smeller, stick their nose in here and be like oak and vanilla?
that's tough because for me it sticks out like a sore thumb. So
Funny.
you know, yeah. So that's tough. I don't know. I would say yes, but you know, if you guys aren't smelling it the way I'm smelling it, then there's definitely a disconnect there.
Well, it's funny. Like I assumed that's kind of what I expected going in there, knowing that it's seen some oak. But like I gotta go digging to get that.
And yeah, and I like your buttery call because I think it actually does smell buttery. You know, California Chardonnay does sometimes have a little buttery taste to it because of a process called malolactic fermentation, but it actually does create a buttery flavor to the wine. So I think that's right on. But you're right, fruit is definitely not what you get up front. It's not like a very fruit forward. Some of the other white wines we've had, like the Albarino, I'm thinking was very fruity. A lot of the other white wines actually. So this is not that, but it's not, I wouldn't say the smell is out of balance either. There's a lot going on in here. There's a good bit of complexity. Hopefully we'll be able to pick a little bit more of the flavors out on the palate. So
Yeah.
why don't we go ahead and try it and see what we're picking up? All right. Aaron, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, I mean, at least for me, the tastes are a lot more present and obvious than the aroma. So tasting it, a lot more of the citrus oakiness that you were talking about, the vanilla, like that is more there. It definitely just wasn't on the nose for me, but now that I'm tasting it, yeah, a lot of that's in there. And also, maybe one of you can kind of point this out. Chardonnay has such a weird reputation, right? Some people love Chardonnay, some people hate Chardonnay. There's like the buttery aspect that people don't like. This seems pretty timid's the wrong word, but pretty like docile as far as like some of the more extremes of Chardonnay that you get sometimes. And I'm really digging that, to be honest with you. Like there's like this very level, even keeled aspect of this, where I think your average Chardonnay hater might not be as hateful tasting this.
Do you know what I think that might be? Because the word that came to my mind when I was drinking it was light. I'm surprised how light this is. And for kind of the butteriness being one of the things that we picked up on when we were smelling it, this is a lot lighter than I was expecting in a nice way. And it's more acidic than I was expecting, which maybe is contributing to that.
No, I think the acid is very nice. Like I was actually surprised how acidic it was. But I will say there's actually quite a nice mouthfeel on it too. That's the one thing I picked up right away. I know, I mean, I believe this sees some lees aging. Lees is the dead yeast cells, which gives it that kind of more lush mouthfeel. And the butteriness, and I hate buttery Chardonnay. It's just not a flavor I enjoy in my Chardonnay, but it really takes a backseat to everything else going on in this one. And it's not at all offensive. It's actually quite nice with everything else going on in here, which 100%. For me is shocking because it is one flavor I loathe. So for that to work in here is really nice. But you do get some of that citrus. You get a lot more of that citrus, I think, than you would pick up on the nose. And then maybe a little bit of that melon and a kind of a honey-esque quality. I don't know exactly what the flavor is, but there's a little bit of that. And I don't know if that is also like part of the mouthfeel. It just kind of feels a little bit thicker. I get a little bit of honey in there as well.
No, I feel like Chardonnay in general has like that creamy, doesn't sound super appetizing for a wine, but it has like that like viscousy or like mouthfeel to it. Like I get what you're saying with thicker, and it has like kind of that honey, but it's not like super grippy. I think the butteriness, like the lack of butteriness, is a huge part of this. I don't know if when we talk about like the crispness of a lot of white wines, like that is the opposite. But, a lot of white wines that we enjoy are like very crisp and bright, and Chardonnay sometimes gets away from that. And this is kind of skating in the middle a little bit in a way that I think is really enjoyable.
Definitely. So what you're talking about there is style. You can put Chardonnay into two categories, really. You have California Chardonnay, which might see some oak like we have here. And then you have more of the Chablis Chardonnay, which is super acidic, super racy. None of this mouthfeel. It doesn't see any oak. And Chablis is a wine region in France right above Burgundy. So it's a cooler climate. It's going to be more acidic. So it's a completely different style, same grape. You could absolutely, I think we talked about this actually in the first episode. You could put those two wines together on the same table and not have any idea they're both Chardonnay.
We talked about like cool climate Chardonnay and warm climate Chardonnay, right? And like how that can really impact the experience.
I just dug a little bit deeper there with the appellations, but this is definitely California or Napa Valley Chardonnay with it seeing some oak and a little bit of that butteriness. But I think it's really well balanced as far as the flavors are concerned.
Yeah, the only thing that, and kind of ties into the different styles you were talking about, Colin, is a big differentiator for me here is I feel like sometimes with probably more the warmer climate Chardonnays that are more oaky, you take the sip and you're overwhelmed with that butteriness, almost like you just took a handful of movie theater butter popcorn. And then it's like, sometimes that's it for the wine. Like that's it for the experience. Maybe after you swallow, there's some interesting stuff going on. What's cool about this is it's still there, but it's almost like on the end of the sip. You know what I mean?
100%.
Like it doesn't overwhelm the palate in the beginning. It keeps it light and fresh. And then towards the back, it's like, oh yeah, and it's a Chardonnay, and it's a buttery Chardonnay. But really cool, really nice balance that's going on with this, the whole sit from beginning to end.
I totally agree. Like I said, I hate that buttery Chardonnay, but this is probably the most well done I've ever tried with that of the butter in there, still being in there. Like I can tolerate this, and it actually, I'm no spoilers, but I'm actually enjoying that as a note with everything else. It kind of just works.
2 additional notes along with that I think are very, very important and scientific. One, earlier in this episode, I poured a glass for my wife, who is a well-known Chardonnay hater. Just known across the lands. Everybody knows she's not a Chardonnay person, and she enjoyed it and asked for a slightly larger pour before she left the recording studio that is my basement. So the average, the average drinker, the average white wine drinker is sipping this and going, okay, especially, and it's kind of breaking that perception of what is Chardonnay. The other thing I just wanted to remind the listener of is this is a 14.1% alcohol wine. And by remind the listener, I mean remind Joel and Colin. So, but like, I feel like a lot of wines, a lot of wineries, when they label their wines, I don't think we've officially unlocked this, but 13.9% is usually locked in there for your higher medium wine. I feel like because crossing that 14 is usually like a sign this is a higher alcohol wine, and they just kind of, I think they're trying to like label on the other side of like, it's over 14, but it's only 14.1.
Dipping our toes in high alcohol.
Yeah. It is one of the higher alcohol wines that we have had on this show, and it is a Chardonnay.
Yeah. But really, again, you don't taste the alcohol. It doesn't play a major part.
No, not at all.
The drinking experience. So, I think they
not
did
a
really
critique,
well.
just a point of fact.
Yes. And a good reminder for me to slow down.
Yeah, it is surprisingly easy to drink at 14% alcohol. So, danger. All right, that looks like a good place to get into the review.
Yeah, but did they like it? It's time for the review.
All right, because this is my wine, I am going to go last. So I will throw this over to Joel, because Aaron just took a sip of his wine. Oh, Joel just took a sip too. So now I'm kind of in a blender.
It's okay.
Everybody's sipping.
Good. I've got this.
Everybody's sipping.
I've got this. You know what? I'm ready to go because
do it.
I have strong feelings on this particular wine. And my feelings are that I really like this wine. So I actually have a question for you, Colin. Before I get too into my review, was this a good example of a California Chardonnay? Or is this sort of an outlier and maybe like a shining star of the California Chardonnay? I'm trying to understand, is this the style that I like, or is just the Stag's Leap that good?
Sure. No, so this is a very restrained style of the big, bold California Chardonnay.
Okay.
But so a lot of the times when people who may not necessarily like Chardonnay, they think of this, but just amped up to 11, like the butteriness and everything else is just so intense. This is a much more refined version of the California Chardonnay.
Okay. All right. Gotcha. Well, I'm really loving what's going on here. And I think I've said before in a couple of episodes that I'm a big, I love acid. I tend to
Big acid head over there.
Yeah. And I tend to pull away a little bit from some of like the over oakiness and things like that. So coming into this one, again, I was a little bit nervous, but this one really flipped things upside down for me because it is so wonderfully balanced and so refreshing and so nice, but still has the essence of even the pieces that I don't love in high volumes, but they're so nicely presented in this way with the acid and just with that freshness and the really nice little bit of citrusiness just to keep everything really lovely. So I'm a huge fan, and this is going prominently on the kitchen table without even a question. First sip, I knew this was a kitchen table wine. So big fan.
Cool.
So you're a big fan. I'm a big fan. I'm actually a bigger fan than you. going back to our competitive
Oh,
nature.
look at that. It's so competitive.
Well,
It's
true.
so competitive.
I'm such a big fan that I had to go back and take a look at our wine fridges.
Wow.
And
Bold statement.
yeah, and I've decided I'm going to make a substitution to my wine fridge.
Whoa.
Wow. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I love
And
that.
this is important for a lot of reasons. One,
Yeah.
I'm going to be the only person that has 2 white wines and 1 red wine. And as
Yeah.
I am someone that said I would pick red wine, now I'm going to have to make some serious decisions moving forward. This is also going to be our first non-old world wine going into our wine fridges.
Okay.
Wow.
Can I just remind the listener, by the way, too, if you haven't listened to a lot of our shows, we always talk about the kitchen table, the closet, and the drain, but we hold our wine fridge in very high esteem here because we all only get 3 spots in our wine fridge. And if we designate that something should take a spot in the wine fridge, we have to take something out. So, Aaron, do you know what you're going to replace with this wine?
I do.
Okay.
So a few months ago, we had an episode on a really great and unique red from Chateau des Two. It's a Côte de Bourg. It's a Bordeaux. And it was great. I really enjoyed it. But I've gone back to it a couple times, and it is an excellent red. But I don't know if I'm going to, I think when I'm trying to expand how my wine fridge feels and I want to take a red out, I also have my Baronia Rioja in there, which I just keep going back to, and I just love it.
Good.
And y'all know that nothing's touching my Dom de Canverner right
course.
now. Just
You fought hard
soulmate.
to get that in.
I
to
fought
your
hard
wine.
to get it in, and I love it so much. But the Côte de Two, it's just moving out of my wine fridge onto my kitchen table. It is an excellent red. It is so good. But I am sliding our first American wine, from Stag's Leap Chardonnay, into my wine fridge because for mid-20s Chardonnay, I would love to show this off and just keep it for a special. It's so good. It's so good.
Yeah,
it's in my wine
Agreed.
fridge.
I did. My first thought was that you were going to take the Dom de Canverner out after you've had to fight so hard to get that in there, and I was like, "There's no way. There's no way
It might not ever come out." Yeah,
I would rather
Just on
have
principle.
2-to-1 white to red. Maybe this comes out in a couple weeks when we find a red that's just more. But for right now, when I think about those 3, this deserves a spot, and it can just sit there in the history of our show.
Yeah,
incredible, man. I love when those wine fridges get a new wine. It's like Angel getting its wings. Pretty much the same thing.
Mine's getting
Pretty
a little
much
dusty.
the same thing.
My wine fridge. I haven't been over there in a little while, so I hope we have an opportunity.
Your Taba is your last new ad. Oh yeah, your first 2 are the Igugal and the Baronia, which are teens episodes on this show.
I know.
We were babies.
I know it. And that Baronia is not going anywhere for a while. The Igugal might have a competitor.
It's so good.
Soon, but yeah.
I feel like revisiting mine. One of the Nebbiolos we tasted with Ashwin. Really good.
La Sacrestia.
La Sacrestia. That's right. Sacrestia.
La Sacrestia. Thank you. I'm so sorry. I always say it like I'm saying a Spanish word. I have to remind myself it's Italian.
I feel like that episode we were all hesitant in front of Ashwin, and we were like, oh, "This is a pretty good wine." Ashwin's like, "What's wrong with all of you? This is a really good Nebbiolo."
Yeah, I still think about that one, and I sometimes wonder if I should have just put it in there. Anyway, all right. So, Aaron, another wine fridge wine. Awesome. Yes, it is my turn. And while it's not quite in my wine fridge, this is an excellent wine. There's no doubt about that. This is probably my favorite version of California Chardonnay that I've ever tried, because I don't drink a lot of it because I don't love it. I don't love that big, buttery, overly oaked Chardonnay.
Yeah.
And this is just so wonderfully balanced and refined. And it's a real pleasure to drink. And I honestly, it's dangerous at 14.1% because I just want to keep drinking it. So I'm prominently putting this on the kitchen table. I think if you want to knock somebody's socks off who has a really negative view of California Chardonnay, you show them this bottle and it would absolutely blow their mind, because this is the
Agreed.
antithesis of the thing that they dislike, at least in the category of California Chardonnay. Now, this doesn't at all compare to, like I mentioned, something out of Chablis, totally different style. But, that's not what we're drinking tonight. 100% kitchen table wine. And just to refresh the listener at home, we are drinking the 2022 Stag's Leap Napa Valley Chardonnay. Absolutely go out and try this one. It's worth every penny, and it's under $30. I mean, the value there is
under
pretty
$30.
Pretty outstanding. Absolutely
not a waste of your wine. Not a waste of your wine by any means.
Not a waste. No. All right. Very cool. So absolutely resounding yeses from all of us. Not a waste of your wine. Go try this one. It is really, really good. All right. Well, I'm gonna go ahead, because we let Aaron do it so much. I feel like Joel's just chomping at the bit to let people know where to interact with us. So, Joel, can you tell the folks at home where you can find us on the? Look at that.
I'm gonna make it really simple, guys. Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Stop wasting your wine. Look us up. Find us there. If you're listening to this episode and you have not subscribed on whatever platform you're listening to us on, please do so. We'd love for you to join us every week. And stop by stopwastingyourwine.com just to get an overview of everything that we've tried and get to know a little bit more about us.
Very cool.
Perfect. Couldn't have done it better myself.
He literally couldn't have. That was perfect. Another awesome episode. Another fantastic wine. Again, 2022 Stag's Leap Napa Valley Chardonnay. Try it. It's awesome. Thanks for tuning in this week, and we will catch you next week.
Bye, y'all.
And remember, stop wasting your wine.
Bye.